Hey friend, Brandon here, and this is the Pixel 5, and here are my top 5 best and top 5 worst things about it. Let's talk about it, because this is Tech Today. This video is sponsored by Private Internet Access, a VPN that allows you to unlock region block content on like Netflix and Hulu, protects your IP address, and allows you to be a dirty pirate. None of you are dirty pirates, right? On top of that, it has 24/7 customer support, a 30-day money-back guarantee, and it costs less than $3 a month. And if you sign up with the link down below, you'll get 3 months for free. Pretty sweet. Make sure you check out that deal by clicking the link down below in the description. And thank you for supporting me by supporting my sponsors. Okay, for the best things, number 1, battery life. With all these phones coming out with 5G and high refresh rate screens, battery life is an issue. One solution is having a really big chunky phone like the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, and the other is just simply cutting out a high refresh rate screen altogether like the new iPhones. Well, the Pixel 5 has 5G and a 90Hz refresh rate screen, and yet it has an incredible battery life. First of all, in idle mode, the Pixel 5 really sips the battery. It can really last a long time. Typically, I get maybe about 6.5 to 7.5 hours of screen on time, and if I'm just casually using it, it will last me 2 days. I've been able to get 36 hours on one charge, which is insane. I have been saying if I got stuck in the middle of a desert and I needed one phone, it would be the Pixel 5. And the benefit of that is that they've been able to balance a bunch of different things in order to get that battery life. They've gone with that aluminum build that doesn't take up as much room as glass and metal, so they can squeeze in more battery in there. They've gone with the Snapdragon 765G chip, which doesn't use as much battery life as the 865 chip. They removed other sensors like the Soli sensor, which for some people would say that's a bummer. I kind of miss it. And they've gone with this whole neat new technology where you use the screen as a speaker. Interesting. Unfortunately, not the best sounding thing, but as a trade-off, I'd rather have more battery life than better sound, which is kind of interesting to say as an audio engineer. The Pixel 5 probably has the best battery of any mainstream phone out right now. And it goes with a 90Hz refresh rate screen instead of a 120Hz refresh rate screen, and it's a constant 90Hz. The difference from 60Hz is noticeable, but that difference from 90Hz to 120Hz, not as big. Number 2, the design. While you have all these other phones that have these honking camera bumps and this industrial design that just begs you to pay attention to it, the Google Pixel 5, it's minimal and simple, and it doesn't demand your attention. It just blends into your environment, and I kind of like that. It looks clean, it's not offensive in any way, and in the hand it feels really good, and it's just the right size. I'm really into smaller phones. I'm kind of getting tired of these ultra phones where it's just kind of a brick in your pocket. But I'm curious, do you prefer a bigger phone or a phone that's about the size of a Pixel 5 or under? Let me know in the comments. So I would say that the Google Pixel 5 is the best looking Google Pixel phone to date. And I would even say that I like it better than the new iPhone 12s. Number 3 is the camera. The Google Pixel 5 brings in that ultra wide camera that so many people have wanted. While I would love to have a telephoto camera as well as an ultra wide camera, I do have to admit it is possible to at least zoom in on an image. While with an ultra wide, you can't really back up enough, especially for like small rooms or real estate. So it's really nice to have an ultra wide lens as well as the processing that Google brings to its camera. Night sight works on that ultra wide camera, and you can take portrait photos with night sight. Along with that, you get 4K 60 recording on video, and then finally there's some really neat video stabilization options that Google has brought, and they're really quite fantastic. It feels like you're actually using a gimbal. You have the standard optical image stabilization that you typically see on most phones, but you have this locked in mode that allows you to have a really stable shot when you're zoomed in really far. Then you have active mode, which kind of works a lot like a GoPro. And then you have cinematic pan, which allows you to have smooth panning shots with a little bit of slow motion to give that dramatic effect. Those things seem really cool, but I'm gonna put them to the test with some really fancy gear from Moment. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified of when that video comes out. I think there's a special deal for Moment gear for This Is Tech Today subscribers, so you know, you might want to watch it. Number 4, the Fingerprint Reader is back. While I absolutely love Face Unlock, and I do wish it was on the Pixel 5, you have to admit right now, probably not the most convenient thing. So having the Fingerprint Reader is really great. Ideally, I'd like to have both, but right now, if I had to have a default, it would definitely be a fingerprint scanner. Plus, with the fingerprint scanner, I can swipe down on the fingerprint scanner and access the notification shade. I really miss this. Number 5, that display. The Google Pixel 5 looks really amazing. It doesn't have the thinnest bezels out there, but those bezels are even. So it looks like you're just holding a screen in your hand, and it looks really great. And the best part, the Google Pixel 5 is the only Android phone that has symmetrical bezels all around. On top of that, it's brighter than the Google Pixel 4. It looks really great. The colors are accurate. It's super smooth with the 90Hz display and doesn't have any weird issues when it's flipping between 90Hz and 60Hz. I checked it out to make sure. So as a whole, I think Google did a great job with the display selection, but there is an issue with it, and that takes us to the top 5 worst things. The Google Pixel series has been known to have front-facing stereo speakers for quite some time. It was the appeal of the Google Pixel 2 and the 3, and you still had some really good stereo speakers on the Google Pixel 4, even if it had a down-facing speaker. Unfortunately, with the Google Pixel 5, it's not stereo front-facing speakers. In fact, it's one bottom-firing speaker and then one under-display speaker at the top. It's a unique technology that Google acquired a few years ago that allows the speaker to use the screen vibrations to produce sound. A really neat idea in theory, but in practice, it doesn't have the best sound. It's severely lacking in the headpiece, but I will say that using it for calls, it gets the job done. It's just a little bit honkier than most phones, but not as concerning as you might think. And even as an audio engineer, I would say, even if the speaker is not that great, it's not a reason to skip this phone. It's not a deal breaker in my book. I mean, how often are we using things like this now? Or maybe I just have it on my desk and I'm listening to a podcast or I have my phone call on speakerphone, so from afar, it doesn't really matter. But if you're playing a game or watching a movie, it doesn't sound great and it's super easy to cover the bottom. Number 2, while I'm really glad that there's an ultra wide lens on the Pixel 5, it's not as wide as the other options that you would have on other phones. Google does say that this is because of their algorithms and how they're able to calculate it and make the photo look good. So maybe it's a worthy trade-off, but it would have been nice if it was just a little bit wider. And then on top of that, throughout the different camera modes that are out there, it just seems to punch in a little bit more. So portrait mode, it punches in, while on other cameras, they don't have to do that anymore. So your field of view gets cropped a lot, and that can be a little bit frustrating, and you just have to end up walking back a little bit more. Number 3, there's no neural core chip in the Pixel 5. If you don't know what the neural core chip is, it was in the Google Pixel 3 and the 4, and that chip did a number of things like processing photos. So you'll notice the difference between the Pixel 4 and the Pixel 5 if you take a picture. There's just a little bit more of a processing time for when it takes night sight photos, portrait photos, or just normal photos. Interestingly enough though, I did compare the quality of Instagram stories from the Pixel 4 and the Pixel 5, and I found that the Pixel 5 looked better. So I guess it's not the worst out there. Number 4, the lack of Project Soli. Now, some of you think that that is really worthless and was just a gimmick to swipe your hand around and things like that. But in my use, I've missed things like Face Unlock, where you just hold up your phone and it unlocks. You just tap on the icon, you're already looking at the phone, and you're already in. So while COVID is our life right now, it's not forever. So I would like to have the Face Unlock as an option, but that's a trade-off of having symmetrical bezels. And number 5 is probably the worst one. The price. So while Google did everything it could to cut down on the price by going with a lower resolution screen, a lower tier processor, a different kind of build, removing Project Soli, removing the squeeze to assist option, removing ambient EQ, removing the neural core, amongst other things, they somehow still ended up charging too much money for it. In my in-depth review, which you can check out up here, the additional cost of $100 is the result of having millimeter wave. Millimeter wave is a type of 5G that most people won't be able to experience or utilize reasonably. So it's really just catering to Verizon, and that $100 difference is something that's passed on to you. On top of that, it puts it in line with phones like the iPhone 12, the Samsung S20 FE edition, and the new OnePlus 8T. So when you look at specs alone, it's got some tough competition. If it was $100 cheaper, this would be a very easy suggestion, both in terms of the wallet and in terms of distancing itself from other phones. But there are many other things to consider with that. I'll have some buyer's guides coming up, so stay tuned for that. But if you're looking to buy the Pixel 5, I would always encourage you to wait until around the holidays when it tends to drop down in price. And if it doesn't drop down in price, the worst that could happen is you just waited a little bit. At $600, this is definitely a no-brainer in my book. I would easily suggest this to anyone. But at $700, it leaves room for pause. So those are my top 5 best and top 5 worst things about the Google Pixel 5. What do you think about them? And if you have the Google Pixel 5, what are your top 5 best and worst things? Go ahead and leave some comments and let us know. And make sure to join the discussion in the This Is Tech Today community Discord chat server. Finally, make sure you check out this video sponsor, Private Internet Access. And thank you so much for watching This Is Tech Today, where we talk about the intersection of technology in our everyday lives, in business, and in all things creative. Until next time.